This is the Fifth Estate winning headlines, your media police post. In this segment, we summarize some of the headlines that you might have missed this morning, but we also take a look at the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. Today is the 7th of September 2020 and I am 2J.
I am 2M.
And I am DM. Let's take a look at today's headlines. On the Daily Nation, Raila takes lion's share of new votes. The Standard, reggae is back. And in the Star, KEMSA probe, EACC targets 50 companies and other stories. What a long one.
I know.
Absolutely.
Let's begin with Raila.
Raila, and this is unprecedented. Raila takes lion's share of new votes. Now, according to analysis by the Daily Nation of official data, they say that there could be 9.3 million potential new voters from Raila's traditional voting blocks. That is Nyanza, Western and Coast regions. And they say some 5.3 million youths will have attained voting age by 2022, and an additional 4 million people eligible to vote in 2017 were not registered as voters. That is huge. That is huge. And I think maybe this was the basis on which a handshake happened. President Uhuru Kenyatta saw this number and he said, hey, the numbers on the ground could have shifted. And if that is the case, he sees that 2022 might be a heated contest. Why not just come together, avoid the battle that may happen, and do a handshake?
And if that is the basis of the handshake, as you're saying, I will say that's fantastic thinking, right?
Yes.
Because if the tyranny of numbers taught us anything, it's that registration is the first thing that should happen. If you register people, you know, you have half of the battle won. And so I think what was very interesting to me was that 5.3 million, or was it, sorry, 4 million who were not eligible to vote because they did not register before 2017. So I think if you're bringing your strongholds together in that regard, I think that's a fantastic strategy.
But guys, the handshake happened before the census, so
well,
so Kenyatta prophesied, did it on the
Don't
basis
you remember
of
this thing called Huduma number?
very good, very good. And by the way, even before you do a census, there are projections that you make. But that is not the point I want to make. All I want to make is this: look, a referendum should be something that William RUTO should actually accept. Because chances are, going by these new figures, that he might be locked out and may not even see the presidency in 2022 if a presidential election actually happens. And if he wants to buy some insurance,
so an expanded executive gives him
is a better bet.
We'll give him leeway.
Being in government.
Yeah, there's no need of fighting the way he's fighting right now. And I think he's being short-termist.
Allow me to throw a spanner in the works, right? As you're saying, these numbers are, they're dependent that the handshake is actually still functioning. So I feel like we need to have a handshake, you know,
state of the handshake
barometer. Exactly. Like what is the state of the handshake? How strong is it? Because these numbers are attributable to Raila and Raila alone, I'd like to assume. So I think we need to start looking at how strong that handshake really is.
You know what, guys? If I become president one day, I'll give special state commendations to intertribal couples.
Oh, okay.
And this kind of data will be obsolete.
You know what? I like that forward thinking. I agree.
We have a 3-pack criteria that we use to analyze the headlines for you. We ask, is it topical or speculative? Is it repetitive or groundbreaking? And finally, is it effective or is the headline just plain lazy? I think we'll park that for the moment. And we go on to the Standard, where they're telling us that reggae is back.
But
the
did
music.
Did reggae end?
Did it stop? Or
So
that's what they're telling us. And they're basing this on the fact that after the corona pandemic subdued some politicians from interacting with people and with each other, they're now back. They've returned to the front line with public rallies and private meetings. And one such politician is Raila Odinga, who has hit the ground running, going around the country to show up support for the constitutional amendments, otherwise known as the reggae movement, I suppose. So he was in where? Kakamega County at Wycliffe Oparany's house. I mean, this story, well, it's we've had it ad infinitum. I don't think there's any new angle here.
Not at all.
I must say that the headline is very catchy.
Yes, it is. Very catchy, very succinct, to the point, eye-catching.
So we wish the politicians good luck as they go back gallivanting, but they should not forget that Corona has not taken a break. They shouldn't start a new wave of infections just because they want to go and
be seen.
Be seen. What is the Star saying?
The Star is telling us the long headline, KEMSA probe, EACC targets 50 companies, and as you said, and other stories. I think I said this last week, another day, another new, person who's being attacked in relation to this KEMSA probe.
Yeah.
So they're telling us that there are 50 companies that have been linked to the KEMSA scandal who are to be questioned at the EACC headquarters today. Much like the story of last week, this is pure speculation. I think they make reference to former MP James Rege, who went in to be questioned in relation to some, company that he was affiliated with, and he answered the questions and he left, and that was it. And I think that as so long as there is no substantial crime that is being proven, these people are simply going in to answer questions. That's what a probe is about, and then they leave if there's been no impropriety. So
absolutely,
if there's speculation, I think we just toss it.
Really, this is just pure speculation.
Pure speculation.
Yeah, I think today's headlines are not lifting the veil of ignorance. But perhaps we can then judge them by another criteria. I particularly liked the Standard.
Yes.
It's quite thoughtful.
I like it. I like it.
So the Standard takes the day. Reggae is back. And onto the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. And just like the headlines, we have a 3-part criteria that we use to analyze them for you. We ask, is it humorous or dry? Is it satirical or pessimistic? And finally, is the cartoon effective or just plain lazy? What do we have in the Daily Nation?
You have Iga, and this is quite a fantastic cartoon. It is a drawing of Jubilee's logo. First was the launch was Tuko Pamoja, and the other box is Tuko Pamoja. But the logo is not of the shaking of hands. It is of someone with the pangas and machetes and clovers, and they have said down there Hatuko Pamoja. And this, I think, is with regard to the very crazy statements that have been made by the following. There's a fellow called Murkumen, and there's another guy. He's called Ngeno, or Joanna. Is it Joanna?
Joanna Ngeno.
Joanna Ngeno. And they have been really insulting the president. They have really abused the president. And I think they're priming us for something. I don't know what they are. But those words are not because of anger. I suspect there's a campaign. There's a narrative they want to start building. And I think it's heading dangerous ground. And I think that's what Iga is trying to show us. With the knives and the machetes and the pangas, all the code weapons. I think this is what these fellows want to go. This is where they want to go. And they can try to go there.
As you guys may know, I take particular issue with the senator for Elgeyo Marakwet, Murkomen Onesmus. And I think Murkomen is a tragic demonstration of how the caliber of leadership in this country is deteriorating. And his case is even more catastrophic because he's a young man. He's a young leader, and he's supposed to be amongst the people that are carrying a vision for the future of this country, but he's not. He's actually just focusing on the trivial, and he's distracting us. And I take great issue with one thing, especially the fact that he went on national television, Murkomen. He opened his mouth and told us confidently that the President Uhuru Kenyatta will not be remembered for brick and mortar, but for his relationship with the Deputy President. Really? Does his relationship with the Deputy President feed people or create access to markets? I mean, do we eat that relationship? Did we vote for a love story or an administration? That's what I keep wondering. I mean, brick and mortar is far more important than the emotional state of one man. The DP's feelings do not contribute to our GDP.
Not at all.
And I think we have deteriorated from the tomboyers of this world who would generate economic and social blueprints for the country at 26 years old. Now we have leaders like Murkomen who are applying soap opera logic to governance. It's a tragedy.
I'm telling you, that entire lot is a sorry lot. The Murkomens, the Ngenos of this world. The stuff they actually say to people. And you see, and DM, you're right. There's so much good going on out there. There's so much more we can do out there. And these are guys who we've put in places of leadership and people who can be able to construe documents that can lead us to the future. And yet they speak and tell us that the emotions of a deputy president are more important than the development of this country.
First thing, Tuam, you were talking about how they were abusing the president. I think it goes beyond abuse. It's more disrespect, I think, at that point. And I think the second thing is, it seems for their camp, it is more important to have an ignorant electorate than it is to have people who are educated and knowledgeable about what their administration is doing for them. So if they want to keep being noisemakers, by all means, keep doing it. But there's a fight to be had.
There's a fellow on Twitter who said Murkomen is his mentor better. Like, wow, guy, you're a
leading
stupid
people down the wrong path.
Yeah.
In the Standard, Gado has drawn a Zoom meeting. We have
Kim Jong-un of North Korea.
Of North Korea, we have Putin of Russia.
You have Erdogan of Turkey.
Yes.
You have El Sisi of Egypt. You have this guy
from Yaoundé.
Paul whatever his other name is, from Cameroon. You have this Assad from Syria. You have Duterte from Manila, Philippines. You have, what is this fellow here? Caracas, Venezuela. What's his name? I've forgotten. You have Museveni from Kampala. Our own Malox from Dar es Salaam.
A handsome lot.
And Jinping from China.
Yeah.
And the caption there is, we've called this meeting to address events in the USA. Mr. Trump has become a threat not only to democracy, but also a bigger threat to us. So who would have thought? Reverse trolls, yeah?
And Putin is there without a shirt.
As usual, yeah.
What I like about Gado's commentary usually is that he's always turning the tables on the West. I mean, these are the meetings that they have about African leaders or leaders from the global South.
Absolutely.
And now it is Trump who has just baffled everybody with his
behavior,
with his antics.
Good cartoon, strong cartoon.
Very good cartoon.
Absolutely.
In the Star,
we
have RUTO on the government seat with his legs extended out to the opposition seat. And Raila is on the opposite seat with his legs extended out to the government seat. And amongst those in the background are Murkomen, Obado, Murathe, Jeanette Mohammed. The usual suspects.
I don't think they know who know who the other is. I think that's where we've gotten to, right?
No, it's all a mashup.
Yeah, no, it's a mashup. Exactly. You're not. Yeah. I think it's a good cartoon. Yeah, and the caption is extended episodes of an Edge of the Sea drama. Oh my goodness.
Edge of the Sea drama.
Too much. Yeah.
That is
good cartoon.
Tujay's favorite. It is a good cartoon. I quite like Gado's as well, and this one of Ozone. So I don't know which one we're going to.
Can you go with Iga? Man, I think, and you've addressed them so well, DM, this Murkomen fellow. And I think this cartoon by Iga depicts the times that we are going through.
Or heading towards.
And I think it is quite succinct.
All right, so by virtue of great commentary, Iga takes the day.
Or is it DM who took the day? I don't know. What do we say?
Iga takes the day and gives us our winning cartoon. So before we get into our final thought, I'd like to remind our viewers to please subscribe to our YouTube channel. So what's our final thought?
And now our final thought, it is inspired by a book entitled Mary Tudor, the First Queen, by Linda Porter.
Yeah. So this week we're going to be looking at some of history's most controversial leaders.
Yeah.
And so I think by way of anticipating the week, I think you should take controversial how you will. Yes. I think it could be good, it could be bad.
Yeah.
So I think many people know the term Bloody Mary to come from the drink, which I think is tomato juice, Tabasco sauce, vodka. I think it's like a hangover cure of some sort.
Oh, yes.
And for some other people, you may also know it as a game that you played as a child.
Which people? English children.
I shall not say which. If you want to know about the game, go to Google. But the origin of the name actually comes from a very true and very bloody history of the first Queen of England, Mary I. And so Mary I, aka Mary Tudor, aka Bloody Mary, was the daughter of Henry VIII from his first wife, Catherine of Aragon. Yeah. And so most people know her as the leader who put many Protestants to death for heresy as she attempted to restore the Roman Catholic Church to England.
Yeah.
And so this book is a detailed biography on Mary Tudor, and it looks into her life from her early life to her youth and an attempt to explore all facets of her life. And so the author Linda Porter tries to give a sympathetic portrayal of this woman, which is at odds with the more common, understanding of her as this bloody leader. And so she was the only surviving child of Henry VIII and Catherine of Aragon, as I said. And she was effectively bastardized by her father because he wanted to divorce his mother. So she became an illegitimate child. So his father wanted to marry Anne Boleyn. And at the time, the Catholic Church refused to acknowledge divorcees or divorce, even for a king. And so King Henry decided, what best do I do? I'll start my own church. And so this is how we see the English Reformation come about. And through the Act of Supremacy of 1534, the English Church broke away from the authority of the Pope and the Roman Catholic Church, and it essentially became a Protestant nation. And so because of this, Mary was then removed from the succession to the throne. And at this time, she was not allowed to see her mother. She was treated by contempt by her father, by the royal family. But she remained a devout Catholic person. And Porter highlights this as something that made her more resentful day by day. You know, you hide me from my mother, you make me a slave or a handmaid to my stepsister, you take me away from my people. And so eventually her father dies in 1547 and is succeeded by her younger stepbrother, Edward VI, but his rule is very short. After which, Mary orchestrates what has been called one of the most extraordinary coups d'etats. The scale of her achievements are very, little noticed or recognized. And so Mary had been then written out of the succession plan, but she enjoyed this really strange, widespread support from the people. I think they had seen her being abused and disrespected by her family, that they continued to support her and her Catholic roots. And so in a moment of crisis, she proves to be politically adept and decisive, and she successfully takes over the throne with the support of the country. And I think Tuam will, go into this. But she becomes the first queen to rule England in her own right. And that means that she did not become queen through marriage. She became queen because she deserved that position.
She was queen regnant, not queen consort.
Exactly. And so this is where thereafter the title of Bloody Mary comes in. As a ruler, she then tried to reverse this reformation and return England to Catholicism. And so during her 5-year reign, she had over 300 religious dissenters burnt at the stake, burnt, set on fire. And so this unfortunate nickname comes about because she was persecuting these Protestant heretics. But is this an actual fair portrayal? And Porter talks about how, yes, many died under her reign and she had this dark legacy, but also may have had much to do with the fact that she was a Catholic monarch who was then followed by a queen who was Protestant. And the country, England and Ireland at that time, remained Protestant. And so as we all know, history is written by the victors. So that effort she was trying to have to return England to Catholicism just never happened. And so she's remembered for death rather than her attempts.
DM, you call her queen regnant. I call her queen gangster.
And I love it.
And let me tell you why.
Your history teacher would be mortified.
I like this queen. And it's because she came from absolutely nothing. Now, after the end of her parents' marriage, she was demoted from being royal princess to bastard. And let me explain how she became queen. Now, Mary became queen via coup in 1553 after her half-brother Edward VI died, and he died at the age of 15. This guy was king and he died at the age of 15. Goodness. Now, clever Mary hears that there is a secret agreement by King Edward VI and his advisors to install a lady, she's called Lady Jane Grey, a granddaughter to King Henry's sister, and they wanted to install her as queen. So she also got word that there was a plot to have her arrested, and because she could have interfered with the ascension of the Protestant Lady Jane. As well, she also receives word that King Edward VI is also about to die. So what does she do? Her and 15,000 people flee to a castle called Framlingham in Suffolk. Is it called Suffolk?
Suffolk,
Suffolk. Yes, with 15,000 men. And there she goes, and she places her standard at the castle and proclaims her intention to be queen. Now, a standard is like that of President Uhuru Kenyatta, the blue flag.
His presidential
standard. That is a symbol of his authority within the term that he serves as president. Plus, if this lady goes to place her standard there, it's the equivalent of swearing herself in, as Raila would do in 2017. Anyway, a couple of days later, a revolt begins, and the revolt is against London. And the revolt, and it's about a week, London gives in and they surrender. And someone travels all the way to London, from London, to Framlingham Castle, and bows in front of Queen Mary of Mary and say that London has proclaimed her to be the Queen of England. And that's how she became queen, gangster queen.
Reading about Queen Mary makes one think about the religion and leadership and the intersection between the two. And actually, I don't think there's any other force that is more powerful as a political instrument than religion. And we have seen this played all through history. So for Queen Mary, in the mid-16th century, as Tuje has explained, she was reversing her father's anti-Catholicism stance. And so in 1555, she revived the heresy laws. And heresy is like blasphemy. So anybody who actually says or practices anything that is contrary to
the orthodox,
to what is orthodox or what is considered orthodox is then punished. And the punishment, as Tuje has said, was being burnt alive at the stake. It was execution. So because religion is so intoxicating, as Karl Marx said in his book, A Contribution to the Critique of Hegel's Philosophy of Right, when he said religion is the opium of the masses, this is how leaders, past leaders, even future leaders,
leaders even assistants,
even clerks,
instrumentalizing religion. And they instrumentalize religion for three reasons, or in three ways. First, it deifies them. If you do something in the name of religion, it makes the populace see you as acting in representation of a higher power. So it puts you almost at a parallel or at the same level as whatever deity it is that represents that religion. And then secondly, it justifies a leader's actions, no matter how absurd, no matter how brutal, as in the case of Queen Mary. And then finally, it pacifies the masses, as Karl Marx said. So even though they're wallowing in either material poverty or mental poverty or whatever it is that they're suffering from, they are pacified by that thought that whatever is happening, even though it is so oppressive, it is meant to be because it is in line with this religious ideology. It's dogma that is represented by our leaders. So we have to fall in line. And so, as I've said, Queen Mary wasn't the first, and she certainly will not be the last. I think when I was reading this, the most proximate example I could think of that is most proximate to us, a leader that instrumentalized religion to commit such widespread atrocities was Joseph Kony. In the leader of the Lord's Resistance Army, because he had fashioned himself as a messiah, but the things that he was doing, I don't think any religion subscribes to. Thank you for joining us tonight. Please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are also on your TV screens on Star Times, GoTV, and Pang Free to Air on a day when we had a winning headline from The Standard and a winning cartoon from
The Daily Nation.
Higa. I will leave you with this quote. I believe in the separation of the church and the state, but I do not believe in the separation of politics from religion. Mull over that and have a good evening. See you tomorrow.